All right, guys, this month for June, we're going to be talking resilience in parenting. So that's going to be the ability to adapt, recover, and thrive amidst parenting difficulties. And I think as dads, when we're able to dial this in, we model both strength and emotional health for our children and our families. There's going to be 5 key areas I want to touch on today, and they're going to be knowing yourself, being unified with your wife, modeling resilience, building connection with your kids, and leveraging community. So the first topic, knowing yourself. I believe that self-awareness is the foundation for all growth, but it's particularly relevant to resilience in parenting. I think that if we can't identify and recognize our personal triggers, it's really difficult not to project them onto our children. I know for me, in my experience, early on, I'd started a business and I found myself extremely irritable and short-tempered routinely. I talk to a lot of dads, and that seems to be a common theme, the inability to control temper or feeling frustrated constantly. Personally, I think for me, it was because I was hiding an identity crisis behind my business. So with that, I acted like I had no control or my ability to be patient or present, but somehow perfect strangers were getting the best version of me. Clients would get this joyful, happy version of me that was just full of energy and life, and then I'd come home to the people I claimed were the most important to me, and they would get the irritable, frustrated, burnout version. And that went on for longer than I cared to admit. For me, I think of operating at that high level of burnout is similar to having, a dozen internet browsers open on your computer. Everything just starts to bog down, starts working a little bit slower, doesn't process as well, and eventually is going to crash or freeze up. And that's where I found myself in a constant state of exhaustion, just trying to prop up this life that I didn't even really know why I was living. I had no real confidence in who I was. And again, I was hiding my image behind this business, and it just led to a lot of decision fatigue, burnout, and I feel that's where a lot of men find themselves. Doubling down on something, feeling they need to do more work, but no real understanding, reason, or identity behind the work that they're doing. And again, just leads to that burnout and frustration. Ironically, as I started to become aware of this, like I said, that self-awareness started to grow, started to process, I started to find confidence in who I was as a man, then I became a little bit less irritable, little by little. And eventually, I can't remember one of the first times I heard one of my kids say, something to the effect of one of my kids told me I wasn't patient or I lose my temper, and I was like, when was the last time you remember me losing my temper? And they had to stop and pause, and they were like, oh, and I was like, see, I've been working on that. And they were like, oh yeah. And that was a really cool milestone for me. And I don't remember the exact times or the exact thing that was, but I do remember that emotion, and that feeling felt really good as a man and as a dad, that I was able to model that for my kids. Fast forward a few years after getting lost in that business, I was actually diagnosed with cancer. And during that really hard season, I was able to not only show up extremely confident, but I was also be very present, and I was able to lead my family through that really difficult time. And I think the biggest difference was that I was confident in who I was as a man, as well as extremely anchored in my faith. So all of that being said, I think one of the key points that I want to drive home, I for a long time felt like I needed to be fully healed before I could move forward. And again, you just need to be aware. Once you're aware that you have a problem, or you find yourself getting frustrated or angry or whatever your trigger is, start to ask questions around that. And maybe you need to seek a little bit deeper help. Maybe you do need to find a therapist. But for me, I was able to, in that particular season, dig into why I was feeling that frustration myself, and ultimately I was able to start to battle my way out of it. But you can start to move forward without being perfectly healed. You don't need to be perfectly healed in order to start moving forward and working at a better version of yourself. One kind of interesting thing that I heard this week, actually, I spent this last week at a conference, and I heard John Israel talk. His social media handles Mr. Thank You. He's actually got some really cool gratitude stuff. But he said that when he's having a difficult time, frustration, I can't remember the exact context, but he takes a snow globe moment. And I was like, a snow globe moment. But if you take a snow globe and you shake it up, all the snow comes and you can't see through it. But if you take that snow globe and you set it down and you let it set for a couple of minutes, everything settles and it's crystal clear. He said when you find yourself in that bit of frustration, if you take a snow globe moment, you excuse yourself from the situation, whether that be to the bathroom or outside or go for a walk, let everything settle for a few minutes, and then you represent yourself to the situation, you'll have a lot more clarity. So that's just a little practical step that you might be able to implement right off the bat. If you find yourself frustrated, for me, I know I didn't solve an identity crisis overnight, but the awareness and having little tools like a snow globe moment were things that started to help me process and work my way toward a better version of myself. So the next topic I want to talk about is unity with your partner. So if we don't present a united front with our spouse or co-parent, we're not really able to provide stability, especially during hard seasons or disagreements. So in my experience, if you're not unified with your spouse, one parent tends to become the favorite and or the children become pawns, all of which is obviously toxic, and the marriage needs to be fixed before the parenting issues. So we spent all last month focusing on resilience in marriage. In Frontline Fathers, I've got a lot of content on marriage strategy and resilience in marriage, so you can go take a look at some of that if you'd like. But I definitely think you need to resolve the marriage issues before you try to move forward. The key points that I wanted to touch on were kind of some strategy, resolving disagreements privately to model teamwork and avoid confusing the children. So Kaylee and I have actually gotten really good at this. If we have a disagreement and we find ourselves starting to go down that road, we might excuse ourselves, have a conversation, and come back as a unified front in front of the kids. But I do think it's very important that we don't have extreme disagreements in front of the kids. That being said, I think some disagreement is healthy because I don't want the kids believing that there's never any disagreement. If you have this yes man or yes woman in a relationship, I don't think that that's healthy either. But there should be a unified front when it comes to the way that we present ourselves in front of the kids. We also have communicated our shared family values, and we've also set boundaries that help us to maintain consistency. And again, Kaylee and I have discussed those things and we're on the same page. So it's not me disciplining the kids and her getting frustrated, or her doing something and me getting frustrated. So if you're not on the same page with your spouse, that needs to be addressed first. And lastly, one big thing, especially in a broken home or a split home, co-parents, never talk ill, lie about, or be disrespectful toward the other parent. That has served me extremely well. In our house, one of our main rules is always honoring your mother, and I will never disrespect Kaylee in front of the kids. And we also are a split family, so I made a vow early on that I would never say anything negative or lie about my boy's biological father. And that has just created an extremely healthy environment to where we're able to have deeper, healthier conversations. So that's just a little tidbit that I'd leave with that. The next section I want to talk about is modeling resilience. So we're going to shape resilient children by demonstrating how to handle failure, being able to apologize and recover. So if we're not, again, everything we've talked about so far, knowing ourselves and having a strong marriage, if we're not leading ourselves well and we don't know who we are and we don't have a strong marriage, how are we going to be able to model that for our children? So they're not going to see us navigate difficult seasons well if we don't have all those things figured out. So as I was preparing for this topic, I actually asked my kids what they thought was one of the more important things that's helped us navigate challenging seasons in our parenting kid relationship. And Gage actually said that he thought apologizing and me being able to admit when I was wrong was one of the biggest things that's made an impact for him. And Gage and Melody both jumped in quickly and agreed with that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I have a tendency to move quicker than I should sometimes, and temper is not as much of a problem as it used to be. Occasionally I do get irritated. Obviously I'm human. But if I am out of line or I do step out of line, I am most definitely not too proud to come back, and I'll usually gather the family after things have settled or at dinner that evening, and I will apologize for my wrongdoing. And I've also been completely naive to the fact that I needed to apologize, and Kaylee's brought that to my attention, and I've also then even sort of begrudgingly, like understanding that it was the entire family felt that I was in the wrong, and I apologized for whatever it was. Ironically, one thing that comes to mind this one time, a couple of years ago now, this young guy was working the counter at a gym, and I don't even remember the exact context of the situation, but he really irritated the crap out of me, and I was super short with him, and everyone in my family, I feel like, was embarrassed, and I didn't even realize how short I was with this young guy. And as we're working out, I could feel everybody just kind of like off. And I said, I need to apologize, don't I? And everybody was like, yeah. And it was funny because that was one of those moments I didn't really think I needed to apologize, but I knew by the way my entire family was acting that I had done wrong. And so I'd actually gone on, or on the way out, I had apologized to that guy, and he didn't receive it well. And that really, it kind of stung. It bugged me because I realized in that moment, another kind of mini lesson, you can't just say sorry and everything is perfect, right? And we have to find a way to not only apologize, but make it right. So I actually pursued that guy. We saw him every day at the gym, so it was easy to spark up conversation. I went out of my way, and it was easy because this kid was a go-getter. I'd see him cleaning the gym more than anyone else on the staff, and so I'd find opportunities to compliment him on that. And eventually, that developed a mini relationship to where he actually, right before we left that city, shared with me that he was getting married, and I think he was only 19. Super excited, but he was super pumped and wanted to share that he was getting married with me, and we kind of came full circle with it. Anyway, sort of a long story, I guess, didn't mean for it to get that involved, but through that, the kids still to this day reference that time at the gym. So I was able to model what it looked like to, swallow my pride and apologize, not only to somebody in my family, but somebody outside of the family. So the whole point in this topic is modeling resilience. Are we modeling the ability to not only endure a challenging season or a difficult situation, but then how do we bounce back from it? And so a lot of times that's not being too proud and being able to actually admit where we're wrong and apologize. So another big piece on modeling is emotional consistency. Kaylee actually brought this up, and I wholeheartedly agree with her that especially as the man of the family, having consistent emotions. Like, we don't fly off the handle for one thing. And that, if you rewind back to when I was starting the business, and again, really lost in who I was as a man, the kids and Kaylee didn't know who they were going to get. Was I going to come home and had a good day? Was I going to come home and had a bad day? And that 100% does not make it easy when you encounter a parenting struggle to navigate those situations with your kids. If they don't feel emotionally, psychologically, mentally safe, then it makes it really difficult to be able to connect with them and go through a hard season, or you don't even think about recovering from it because you're going to be stuck in the middle of it. So emotional consistency. And again, it's not that you'll never lose your temper or you'll never do something wrong, but then being able to come back and say, hey, I screwed up. And again, with that self-awareness, the more you become aware that you're losing your temper and apologizing, at first it might happen a lot, and eventually you'll have that moment like I mentioned with my kids where it's like, well, Dad loses his temper. And I said, do I? When was the last time you remember me losing my temper? And they're like, oh wait, I actually don't know. And that's a really good feeling to feel and a good moment to have, but it takes a long time, and in the beginning it's going to suck. You're going to screw up routinely and you're going to apologize a lot, but stick with it, and I promise you'll start to grow. It starts with self-awareness. The next subject I want to talk about is building connection, meeting your kids where they're at. Personally, I struggle with this. Sometimes I still struggle with this. Actually, it might even have been this morning. We were talking about how hard it is with, my boys are 15 and 17 years old right now. And a lot of times I want to group them together. But the difference between 15 and 17 is huge. The emotional maturity, the mental processing, the focus on the dreams, the goals, the desires, it's drastic. And if you just blanket assume that your kids are the same when they're not the same, if you think the boys are girls and girls are boys and the ages are all the same, and you can just make blanket rules and conversation, it just does not work. And as simple as that sounds, that has been a huge challenge for me, to be able to meet each of my kids where they are and be genuinely interested in the things that they're interested in. All three of my kids have been extremely interested in something that not only am I not interested in, I would say I'm almost against. And the thing that they were interested in is not bad, it's just extremely against any of my interest personally. And so it's really hard for me to show genuine interest in something that I am genuinely not interested in. But I put my kids well above my dislike for something. So if my kids are interested in it, then I become interested in it. And sometimes I think there's an element of fake it till you make it, but the more you're willing to sit and ask questions and be genuinely curious about what your kids are into, the more you're going to find that connection. I think on that, another big note with this topic is meet them where they are, not where you want them to be. I've screwed this up quite a bit in my parenting journey. I think there should be a certain level of maturity, or there should be a certain level of knowledge, or a certain level of fill in the blank. And instead of expecting the kids to be at a certain place and then being disappointed when they're not there, I try to meet them where they're at and encourage them and ask questions that help motivate them to see a little bit bigger version of themselves and work toward it, as opposed to just expecting more or different or fill in the blank. So being present with your kids where they are, not where you want them to be or expect them to be. I think another thing that ties in, this hasn't really been an issue for me, but I've seen it a lot talking to dads. You expect your kid to do what you do or do it better or carry on the family legacy or the family business. We routinely talk with the kids, and I tell them all the time, I don't care what you do, I care who you are. Your character matters so much more to me than anything you do. I don't care if you want to be a missionary, a janitor, a business owner, military, doctor, accountant, cowboy or girl. I care about your character and who you are as a person more than anything you'll ever do. I'll love you unconditionally and be proud of anything you do. So with that, make sure that if you're creeping into that, I want to carry on the family legacy, or my kid will be a doctor because I'm a doctor, or any of those situations, be really cautious of the walls you might be putting up instead of building connection with your kids. So another really successful thing that I've done with building those connections with my kids is meeting routinely. Every week I try to have a one-on-one with my kids, and actually recently I've been failing at this. It's a horrible excuse, and I despise when people say that they're busy, but we've been running in different directions, and that's what it's felt like. It's felt too busy, and that's a matter of me not taking control of the schedule. So I actually met with the kids this morning and said, this needs to become a priority again, and they all agreed. But when we are meeting routinely every week, even if there's no agenda, just the fact that you sit down and they know that they are the biggest priority on your schedule, that you're willing to have one-on-one time with them, it builds an emotional security blanket that allows them to feel safe, and they start to share more of their fears and their struggles as well as their wins. So when you've developed that relationship to where there's an emotional safety, and you end up having a hard time, whether that's could be me losing a temper, or the kids having issues with other kids, or fears or insecurities, or it could even be like failing a test. It doesn't matter. When that emotional safety is there, they feel much more comfortable connecting with you. And you're able to navigate difficult seasons much smoother, and you bounce back much faster. And like I said, in the beginning, I felt like I had to have this structured conversation. It needed to be like a coaching conversation. But what I've found over doing this for a few years now is it's the consistency in the conversation, not what the conversation is about. They just want to be the most important thing on your schedule, and rightfully so. They want to be able to have the time for you to sit down and just be able to be present with them. So for us, this has evolved. Sometimes it is a little bit more on the coaching or mentoring side, and other times it's me feeling like my tongue's bleeding because I just need to listen, or I just need to play a board game, or I just need to do something with the kids that they want to do, and they don't need to be coached. They don't need to be critiqued. They don't need to be questioned. They just need the quality time and the love of your presence, and that's all it takes. So if you're not putting in that time consistently, then I highly suggest you carve out 15 to 45 minutes just to sit down and be present with your kids. So, yeah, I think Jordan Peterson had a segment, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, but he said, be willing to suffer with your kids, I think it was. And he talked about having, say you have a daughter that gets straight A's and, she's an athlete and just never gets in trouble. You're perfect kid. And she wants to go to a concert that's at a bar, a known biker bar in a bad part of town at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And again, paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly how he puts this, but it's not so much whether you let her go or don't let her go. It's whether or not you're willing to sit down and explain the position, hear her side of it, and let her know why, as opposed to saying, yeah, I don't care if you go, just leave. Or saying, no, you're not allowed to go because I said so. So again, do your kids matter enough that you can spend the time and let them know how much they matter to you? Don't confuse that with feeling the need to explain yourself. I firmly don't believe that you need to explain yourself routinely to your kids, but there's a big difference between letting them know why you do the things that you do and that they're loved, and putting in that time and connection together. Lastly, I want to talk about leveraging community. So building a support network of other fathers, families, and professionals is crucial, and it helps battle against isolation. I think as dads, we find this kind of unwritten rule. Society, it's very common to see we have to have it all figured out. We can't have any emotions, and if we do have emotions, nobody cares, and you better have the answers. Like, it's this really toxic mindset, in my opinion. That being said, if you're listening to this and feel like nobody cares, I assure you I care, and I've been through most of the things that you're probably struggling with, and I'm happy to have a conversation if you need to have one. But on the note of leveraging community, you need to have a tribe of men around you that, for me, I try to find guys that are varying levels of where I'm at and ahead of where I'm at. I also have some guys in my circle that are a little bit below where I'm at as far as younger kids or a little less life experience, so that I can hopefully pour into them. But then when I'm hitting struggles, I reach out to my peer group of guys that are at a similar life stage, or guys that are a little bit beyond where I'm at with older kids and a little more life experience. A recent example within the past couple of years was dating. And it's funny because you think like, oh, we've all dated at some point and we've got enough experience as I'm a man, Kaylee's a woman, we know how to date and we figured this out. But as certain situations started to arise with the opposite sex of our kids, we found ourselves kind of scratching our heads, and we didn't have a plan going into the situation. So I reached out to a good friend of mine who's also a mentor. He's got kids a little bit older than mine, and I was like, what did you do? And it was funny because the information he shared really felt like a duh moment for me, but it also highlighted the importance of community. I like to think of it as a 90% solution. When you have almost all the answer you need, but you're struggling with that last 10%, and you ask a question to somebody that just has a slightly different angle, a slightly different perspective, and it's like this light bulb moment for you. That's a really powerful thing to have to be able to call a friend or a mentor and just, or having a community and being able to share, hey, I'm struggling with this. And then having a bunch of guys or one person, depending on the context, be like, oh, yeah, I remember when I did that. No big deal. This is what I did. And the cool thing is, sometimes it's not a direct, perfect recipe or a perfect answer for you, but you get enough wisdom from someone else's situation, you glean enough wisdom that you can create your own solution. And so in that moment with the dating, I came back and told Kaylee, and she had the same. She was like, that's so simple. Why didn't we think of that? And again, you've got to be able to have that vulnerability and transparency, humility, the ability to ask peers, friends, have a tribe of people around you that are able to help you navigate those seasons. Because again, you'll find yourself in those periods of time when you're just sort of stuck. You feel like you have almost, you're like, I know I've got the basics to this, I know I should understand this, but you're having a hard time moving forward. And the people that have been in that situation before you are going to solve that problem almost instantaneously. And so stop spinning your wheels and find a tribe of people, find a tribe of men. There's dad groups out there. That's what I'm building with Frontline Fathers, a group of men that can come around each other and normalize the conversations about what was your workout, how are you growing personally, what have you done intentionally with your kids, how was your date with your wife this week. Like, I want to create an environment where those are the normal conversations over, the football score or your favorite flavor of beer, which again, nothing wrong with your favorite flavor of beer, but I want to elevate the conversation. That's what I'm aiming to do with Frontline Fathers. So depending on your situation, mental health is a very real thing. You may need a little deeper support than a community of friends can offer. You may need some therapy or medication. I think that those are crucial tools to not be too proud to pursue when you actually need them. Personally, I'm not a fan of long-term medication. I know there's situations where it's necessary, but do what you need to do to get to where you can start to improve and grow. So a big fan of dad-focused groups. Communication with your wife and your community is essential in leveraging community. So in conclusion, we talked about knowing yourself, having unity with your wife, modeling resilience for your kids, building connection with your kids, and having that connection with them, as well as leveraging community. So I hope you were able to find some actionable nuggets out of this, and you were able to take away something that you can implement into your life. And if something really resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Share the lesson, take whatever works for you and share it so somebody else can get value as well. And until next time, stay in the fight, keep showing up, focus on progress over perfection. Thanks, guys.